Good morning. These are the Juniper Mountain Wilderness area, and I'm going to break here and talk about a real anime classic.
Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro.
The Castle of Cagliostro was the second theatrical animated movie in the now lengthy Lupin III anime franchise. Made in 1979, it was also the first theatrical film directed by an up-and-coming young man named Hayao Miyazaki, who'd go on to become Japan's most celebrated anime director for the next 3 decades. The notorious international thief Lupin III, with his gunman partner Jii-san, robbed Monte Carlo's National Casino, only to find that the money they've stolen is counterfeit. Deciding to track those bogus bills back to their source, they head to a small European nation, Cagliostro, where a younger Lupin once botched a robbery. As in all his travels, no matter how many borders Lupin travels, it seems everyone speaks Japanese. On an idyllic country road, they meet a lovely young woman, Clarice, who's being chased by some thugs. When Lupin fails to keep her from being taken unwillingly back into the local castle, he decides to go rescue her. It seems that Count Cagliostro intends to marry Clarice whether she's willing or not. The idea is to reunite the two factions of the family. A legend inscribed on a pair of signet rings that the Count and Clarice each wear says that reuniting the dividing bloodlines will unlock some old family treasure. It's not clear why the Count needs more treasure since he's running a thriving counterfeit business down in his basement. But you know what they say, you can never be too rich. The Count is a callous man who cares only for himself. Happily, Clarice left her signet ring with Lupin, so Lupin can begin a game with the Count, who very badly wants the ring back. Lupin calls for his samurai buddy, Goemon, for help, and he even alerts Interpol Inspector Zenigata to his plans to rob the castle, letting the overzealous police officer provide more of the confusion on which Lupin thrives. Coincidentally, it seems that the lovely and larcenous Fujiko is already inside the castle, disguised as a servant. She's working on some heist of her own, too. So it seems the whole Lupin III cast is ready for their adventure, stealing not just the treasure, but the girl from the Count. Like all Lupin III stories, Castle of Cagliostro is a mix of humor, action, car chases, and impossible acrobatics.
Damn, they did buy that off the lot. Finally some excitement around here.
Going up!
Castle of Cagliostro is not your typical Lupin III adventure movie. The Lupin portrayed here is more noble and romantic than other incarnations. Not only is he out to rescue Clarice, he's not acting lecherously or particularly greedily, just chivalrously. Some Lupin III purists hate it. I love it, and I don't think I'm alone in that judgment. Although the usual cast is present, not everyone gets equal time. Lupin works by himself quite a bit, with Jii-san as his sidekick. Lupin and Zenigata get some interesting quality time together in this anime, one that gives the dogged policeman more sympathetic traits than his usual role as the simple foil of Lupin's antics. Goemon gets only a little time to flash his sword and deliver his usual deadpan lines. Fujiko doesn't get a very big role in this movie either, but what there is quintessential Fujiko, as she produces big guns and tosses grenades to complete her job. The change in tone is signaled right in the opening title sequence. Instead of the usual action scene, it's relatively peaceful, and instead of Lupin III's traditional jazzy theme music, there's a soft ballad. All that music is still composed by Yuji Ono, who wrote the music for the TV show and the previous movie as well, but he's delivered an entirely different style of soundtrack for this movie. Another thing that makes this particular movie unique among Lupin III videos is the quiet parts. Lupin is usually non-stop action and comedy and adventure, with a little exposition. Director Miyazaki takes time to develop some quiet moments at several spots in this movie. Lupin wanders the grounds of an old burned-out mansion near the castle. It's almost sentimental for a moment. The movie delivers a final confrontation that leaves the frantic chase scenes that led up to it behind and simply pauses with Lupin, the Count, and Clarice in a tense standoff on the face of an old clock tower, a scene that's become an anime classic. But for me, the best scene is earlier, when Lupin breaks into the tower where the Count is holding Clarice prisoner. Here, he has a lengthy and quite charming conversation with the young lady. It's neither lecherous nor funny. It's almost romantic, the kind of moment never seen in a Lupin III video, and not written again by Miyazaki himself for almost a dozen years, until he made Porco Rosso.
こんばんは、花嫁さん。
あなたはあの時の方ですね。
忘れ物ですよ。
このためにわざわざ伯爵に見つかったら殺されるというのに。
なに、狙われるのが泥棒の本性です。
私に何か差し上げられるものがあればよいのですが、今は虜の身。
As I said earlier, this is the first true theatrical movie directed by Hayao Miyazaki, who also co-wrote the screenplay. He'd previously worked on several TV series, including Lupin III itself, and directed the Future Boy Conan TV series. This movie isn't an original creation, of course, since it's based on a long-running TV series that's derived from a manga. Artistically, Castle of Cagliostro keeps the familiar character appearances for Lupin and company, making them slightly less stick-figure cartoonish than they were in the TV series for this motion picture. Lupin returns to the green jacket that was his signature in the first TV series, even though he'd switched to red in the contemporary TV series and the previous movie, The Mystery of Mamo. The background art for the European exteriors, bucolic grassy meadows, clear lakes, and old buildings are more detailed than the typical Lupin III outing. Few Lupin III stories have a sense of place like this movie. Usually Lupin III's adventures take place at multiple locations, often all over the world, and they exist in isolation from one another. Except for the first 3 minutes of this movie, Castle of Cagliostro is set in the old titular castle whose surroundings are well established early on, from the lake, the ruined mansion, the ancient clock tower, the nearby forest, and neighboring village. Castle of Cagliostro is the best of the Lupin III franchise as far as I'm concerned, probably because it's the least typical Lupin. It downplays his roguish vices and adds a sense of nobility to his character. It's certainly the least cartoonish of the lot. I can see why some Lupin III purists might find it blasphemous, but I give it 4.5 stars. It's a splendidly done caper adventure with some splendid character moments. Castle of Cagliostro is the only theatrical movie directed by Miyazaki that isn't owned by Studio Ghibli and isn't distributed in the U.S. by Disney. It was originally released in the U.S. by Streamline Pictures with an English dub that renamed Lupin III Wolf to avoid lawsuits from the French novelist who created the original Lupin character. A second dub from Manga Entertainment improved on Streamline's work and included a DVD with the original Japanese dialogue and English subtitles as well. I'm not fond of Jigen's voice in the second dub, but it's a lot better than the first attempt. Unfortunately, that dub also added some profanity to the dialogue, which together with the violence might make it unacceptable for your grandkids. Simply because the voices are more familiar to me, I prefer the original Japanese voices with the subtitles. As I said, Cagliostro's finale on the clock tower has become a classic anime moment. It's referenced as a cosplay in Here is Greenwood, as a sandcastle in Genshiken, and even gets a nod in the close of Disney's The Great Mouse Detective.
Thanks for watching.